Welcome to Alpha Centurion. I'll be your guide. Today we're going to be going over the Augsburg Confession, and we're going to be starting with Article 22 on the Sacrament. For them, it must be given and received in both kinds. Unlike the terrible habit of administering in one kind, the Catholic Church has developed. Fair enough complaint, but I would call this a whine, not a deal breaker. This is something that could be addressed and corrected without schism. For them, the sacrament should not be divided. For them here meaning the Protestant reformers, but I would also say the Orthodox also have this view. Or many Orthodox have this view, and many Catholics, even traditional Catholics, share this view. More wishful thinking without a thought to practicalism or utility from the Protestants. For instance, during the pandemic, it would be unethical for people to share the same cup. Or perhaps we could have done something like taking it from spoons, taking inspiration from the Orthodox practice of receiving the blood or the wine on a spoon or from a spoon. But then the question becomes, could the spoon be disposable without it being a form of disrespect or impiety? But let's look at their proof text. So it's going to be Matthew 26, verse 27. Then he took a cup, gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which will be shed on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins." And then let's look at 1 Corinthians 11, verse 22. I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers, so that you will not become wise in your own estimation. A hardening has come upon Israel in part, until the full number of the Gentiles come in, and thus all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion. He will turn away godlessness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them, when I take away their sins. Now let's look at Article 23 on priestly marriage. On here, it's a ton of quotations here. So we'll see how we go. I'll try to give my commentary after each quotation. But there's a lot here that they complain about against priestly marriage. So they begin with Genesis 1:28. God blessed them, saying, "Be fertile and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and all the living things that move on the earth." Which is fine. But that doesn't answer for people who are, let's say, infertile, or someone who's psychologically ill-prepared to be a parent. Someone who would make a terrible parent and would produce twisted offspring or unhealthy offspring. That's a real concern. If someone is not mentally capable of taking care of a child, of raising a child, if someone is not predisposed to that, there are other vocations. So I think that is though a true example, it is a bad example of the command because some people physically cannot be fruitful. Matthew 19, 9-12. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, and marries another commits adultery. His disciples said to him, if this is the case of a man with his wife, is it not better not to marry? He answered, not all can accept this word, but only those to whom that it is granted. Some are incapable of marriage because they were born so. Some because they were made so by others. Some because they have renounced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Whoever can accept this ought to accept it. Now for me, this statement does not support the Protestant view that priests have to be married or ought to be married. This actually supports the view of the Catholic Church that some people are not made for marriage. And those people, if they so choose, should become priests or nuns. I would say that this holds true. And this coincides with what my thought on the first proof text was. Then let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 1 through 13. When I came to you, brothers, proclaiming the mystery of God, I did not come with sublimity of words or of wisdom. For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. I came to you in weakness and fear and much trembling. And my message and proclamation were not with persuasive words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of spirit and power, so that your faith might rest not on human wisdom, but on the power of God. Yet we do speak a wisdom to those who are mature, but not a wisdom of this age, nor of the rulers of this age who are passing away. Rather, we speak God's wisdom, mysterious, hidden, which God predetermined before the ages of our glory, and which none of the rulers of this age knew. For if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what the eye has not seen and the ear has not heard, and what has not entered the human heart, what God has prepared for those who love Him, this God has revealed to us through the Spirit. For the Spirit scrutinizes everything, even the depths of God. Among human beings, who knows what pertains to a person except the spirit of that person that is within? Similarly, no one knows what pertains to God except the Spirit of God. We have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we may understand these things freely given us by God. And we speak about them not with words taught by human wisdom, but with words taught by the Spirit, describing spiritual realities in spiritual terms. I have no idea why they're using this as a proof text on priestly marriage. It has nothing to do with priestly marriage. This is actually a text speaking against a Jewish idea of the abstract called wisdom, which is a feminine spirit. Because in the New Testament, wisdom is now identified as Jesus or with Jesus. So if Jesus Christ is going to take the position of wisdom in the Old Testament, then wisdom in the Old Testament cannot be its own spirit. So they have to divide the spirit of the world or the spirit of human wisdom from the wisdom of God or the Spirit of God. And that's what they're doing here. This has nothing to do with marriage. This is differentiating between the Jewish understanding of wisdom and the Greek understanding of wisdom, and now the new Christian understanding of wisdom as coming through Christ and being given to us by or through the Holy Spirit, or as wisdom representing Christ by the Holy Spirit. So this is, this has nothing to do with priestly marriage. Anyway, their next proof text, 1 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. But understand this, there will be terrifying times in the last days. People will be self-centered and lovers of money, proud, haughty, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, irreligious, callous, implacable, scandalous, licentious, brutal, hating what is good, traitors, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, as they make a pretense of religion but deny its power. Reject them. So on its own, this has nothing to do with priestly marriage, but it is they are using it to strike at the priesthood, because what they're saying is that the priests that they see and that they know are lovers of money, are proud, are haughty, are abusive, are disobedient to their parents, I guess here meaning the bishops. They are ungrateful, either ungrateful to God because of the whole grace alone, faith alone thing, or ungrateful to the people, maybe. Irreligious, meaning that they're not actually practicing piety. They're callous, they're cold. They give really strict punishments at this time for confession. You have to do the whipping of the self-mutilation, that kind of thing. Maybe. Implacable, scandalous, which are slanderous, meaning they tell lies, or they rumor monger. Licentious, brutal, hating of what is good, works, faith alone versus works alone. Traitors, I guess, meaning that they partake in impious or sacrilegious rituals, which, again, you can see this happen today. There was a priest that was busted for having sex with prostitutes at an altar. So, reckless, conceited, plenty of conceited bishops and priests. Lovers of pleasure, even all of this would even apply to apologists as well. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Anyone in the prosperity gospel, there you go. Or in some kind of heathenistic, once saved, always saved theology, as they make a pretense of religion but deny its power. Again, prosperity gospel people. So yeah, this can be used against a priest, but it can also be used, like I said, against the prosperity gospel preachers, against almost any religious group. You can use this to show that people are hypocrites. I don't think that's what it's trying to show. I don't think that it's just saying like, hey, people are hypocrites. I think it's saying when these things happen, that's how you know the end of days are coming or the last of days are coming, and that you should reject people who do these things. That doesn't mean reject the church or reject the priesthood. It means don't follow a priest that's doing these kind of things. Don't follow a leader that's doing these kind of things. Don't follow a parent that's doing these kind of things, a brother or sister. Anyone who's doing these kind of things are not your brother and sister. Don't follow them. They're bad examples. They don't have your best interest at heart. Okay. Now, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3. They forbid marriage and require abstinence from foods that God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. Okay. Now, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3. That is something that you can use against the idea that all priests must be celibate and cannot be married. But there's a twist here. The church actually doesn't require all priests not to be married. It is a discipline. It is a discipline that has expanded, that may be out of hand. But I think if you could have the priesthood have two disciplines, one where they're married and one where they're not, and have the one where they're married recruit more, I think that would be fine. After all, we do allow Anglican priests, we do allow Orthodox priests into the Catholic priesthood, and they can be married. So I think there is a way to have married priests and to bring in more priests, because if you were to allow marriage in the church, you would have a stronger priesthood. So that's it for now. I think that was just, 22, Article 22 and Article 23. All right, I'll talk to you all next time. Peace.